Hey everyone, welcome back to the Power of Connection podcast. I'm your host, Christy Renee, and this is the podcast that helps you learn to implement storytelling and communication strategies into your everyday brand communication that will help you adapt to these shifting buyer behaviors and expectations and new era of business that we're in. If you're wondering more of what I'm talking about, catch episode 1 or 2, where we dive deep more into those shifting buyer behaviors, or the blog that goes into all of the research and helps you understand what you need to do. But today we're going to be talking about trust and how you can use something called magnetic storytelling to inspire trust in your office. To inspire trust within your brand and your brand communication. And so, the biggest challenge that small, medium businesses, entrepreneurs, everybody is having this challenge of standing out. How can you stand out and rise above your competition when the game has totally changed? What used to work doesn't anymore. We've got AI leveling the playing field, algorithms changing. With this TikTok ban, will it, won't it? Things are shifting. And so we may not be able to rely on the same tactics that we always have, but storytelling and having a genuine, authentic brand culture that creates brand advocates and walking billboards from your staff who love working there, that is something that is timeless, sustainable, and scalable. And so we're talking today about how this idea of magnetic storytelling and creating this culture can help you not only do more with less, it's a very resourceful approach, but it can also help have the highest return on investment of any marketing or training dollars that you have spent so far, and it will be the most streamlined, scalable, and sustainable solution that you have tried ever. I'll go ahead and say it. Sweeping statement. So, magnetic storytelling, whether you're an entrepreneur or you are a business organization that has multiple roles and departments, magnetic storytelling is the same for each because there's an idea of internal and external alignment of communication. And so if you're an entrepreneur and it's just yourself, one of the biggest things that I tell people is if you're showing up to close a sale, or hey, even professionals, if you're trying to land an interview or you're a business owner and you're going on a podcast, a radio interview, and you're wanting to use this as an opportunity for visibility and sales, I'm here to tell you that if you're not carrying the energy that you are the best pick in any room, you will never convince the person on the other side of the table, the other side of the screen, the other side of the radio that you are the best choice. And so that's what it looks like for an entrepreneur to have internal alignment. But when it comes to larger organizations, still small and medium businesses with teams, you get this breakdown in communication that happens in a couple ways. Not only do you start to experience, and this is something I experienced firsthand, in 2020, I was working at an Emmy award-winning advertising agency that was experiencing rapid growth. We had less than 150 employees, maybe it was even closer to 100 between two offices. And at the time I joined full time, we had 4 departments that worked together daily, rapidly scaling. And it ended up like 30% organization and new roles that weren't there before. And that's the important thing. It wasn't just turnover, but scaling in the sense of growing your organization and how many creatives you have, account manager, customer service, sales, marketing team members. And what happens is when you're in this very pivotal growth stage where you're scaling like this, the very first thing to break down is internal communication. And one of the biggest things that I find that happens in all organizations is that you're bringing a team together of different thinkers. And what happens when we get rooms of different thinkers together, the communication, it's like that game of telephone. You think that you're saying the same thing, but when it gets all the way down and time to be executed, what the last person heard differs from what the first person said. And so this idea of telephone is such a resource waste. So when you align your internal, and we'll get to external communications here in a second, when you work to align those within the culture of your organization or entrepreneur this is the same for you, you are really setting yourself up for streamlined, sustainable scalability. And these are 3 of my favorite S words, and we will get more into them as we go. Now, why is a brand story important? I'll be on a panel in a couple weeks at a family enterprise center with Kennesaw State University. I'm looking very forward to it. And am I giving a preview? Am I giving it away? There's a question that may or may not be answered there. And it prompted me to start thinking about how other people think of brand storytelling. If you've never considered that you need brand storytelling, you're probably like, my brand story is a page on a website. Why do I need a brand storytelling expert? Why do I need somebody who's a consultant that comes in and a brand story is just a page on a website? So glad you asked. When we think of a brand story as nothing more than a page on a website, what's happening is that we are losing the heart or the essence of a business. And without this heart, this essence, this purpose, this story-driven culture that your employees and customers can rally behind, you're not going to make it with the new buyer generation out there. Because whether we're talking B2B or B2C, consumers have changed and they demand more. And, I'm not mad about it. In every disruption, there is such a great opportunity for growth and just opportunities of all kinds. And those that succeed are the ones that look at this time of disruption and say, how can I adapt and how can I change? And so if you go back to the story that started you, and I would say if you have a story on your about page, it is not a fully robust brand story. It's probably just a little about. But if you can start to build a story that not only encompasses the past, the present, and where you plan to go in the future, but then it also brings in your customers. We're in the age where businesses, nobody cares. Nobody cares about you until you give them a reason to care. So when you make it about your audience, about your customer, about your consumer, you're giving them a reason to care. So that brand story should also encompass how you help people in emotionally evocative language. Season 1, episode 2 that we recorded and released last week goes into this in detail. Now, as we start building your brand story, and if you listen along week to week, you'll probably pick up a lot of actionable tactics that can help you do this. We'll move beyond the what a little bit right now and just understand at this high level that having this brand story can align your internal and external communication so that if you're an entrepreneur, you have the energy of alignment and authenticity. And if you're an enterprise, you have that presence that makes it easy to know, like, and trust you. And trust is why we're here today. So think about the last time you recommended a product or a service to a friend. What did that product or service do to make you, wow, I'm going to go out of my way to share this? I'm guessing, and I would love if you share this with me. Find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. I'm there. Share with me the last time. I'm thinking now, I think what's making me laugh is for Christmas, we got these terribly destructive shambongs, which had, they just open and the box is beautiful and they've got a little tagline because it's awesome. And just from start to finish, this brand had such a full experience. It was so different than the norm of what we were used to. And we were laughing as everybody who came over started to become a walking billboard. Have you tried a shambong? Shambong? Oh, you got to get it. They were ordering them for their friends off Amazon, sending them straight to their house. And it became such a grassroots marketing strategy that they probably, let's hope they planned for it with all the care and intention they put into the story and user experience, but it's not something they spent marketing dollars on. It is something that was created from the authenticity of this brand. And so when you lean into story like this, you inspire trust and experience, lean into story and experience, you inspire trust in a way that creates brand advocates and walking billboards, and it is such a fast tool for growth. It also does something that's very hard to do these days. There is a South Park episode many years ago when I was in college that was titled "The Simpsons Already Did It." Do I have any Trey Parker and Matt Stone fans? They are such, say what you will about how they offend everybody. They call themselves equal opportunity offenders. And I followed probably season 2 to 14 pretty religiously, and they're still going to this day. Say what you will about them, but they're very talented storytellers. And they had this episode, The Simpsons Already Did It. And I remember feeling mixed emotions back when I watched it for the first time. The idea is everything's already been done. You cannot have a unique idea because it's already been done. And I remember watching it and feeling two things. The first was, well, that's kind of a bummer, right? I can't create anything unique. But I also remember feeling, and I think that this was the point of the episode, take the pressure to create something brand new away. Somebody's already done it. Every Simpson episode had already been done in some way before South Park came along, and they poked fun at that, and they leaned into their own story to differentiate themselves. Now, story does that. You guys may be familiar with my favorite story about leveraging my story to land that very first big time agency gig that I had. Everything was stacked against me. I quote unquote should not have been the choice on paper. But because of my magnetic presence and storytelling skills and my understanding that we can leverage our story to be our unique selling proposition, whether you're a professional, an entrepreneur, or an enterprise, your story's the only thing that somebody else doesn't have. And so I remember when I was in the interview for a senior position that I most certainly did not qualify for, there were, 8 years of experience in an agency that they wanted, and I had zero. But I ended up being the best hire they had made in a long time, and I completely revolutionized how they did the copy department and approached messaging there. This is where I get my frameworks from because I was promoted 2 times in 2 years, and then my boss's boss rearranged everything to give me the authority to reshape how copywriting was done. And I love this work so much because it really leans into emotional language and story. And so when you leverage your story, you can experience growth beyond your wildest dreams. We will get more into that in future episodes. Now, I said magnetic storytelling is one of your most scalable techniques. Why is this? It's because internal communication is the biggest breakdown. It can lead to the biggest breakdown in teams, in resources, in wasted money, time, billable hours when a team is scaling. And at the time that I was coming into this agency, 4 departments were scaling all simultaneously, and communication was chaos. I remember higher up leadership was talking, and everybody worked in silos too, which is a really outdated method of doing things. You've probably had your staff complaining about silos for years. If you haven't noticed, they are, and it's time to get rid of them. If you've noticed, well, it's time to do something about it because silos and breakdown of communication going to waste so much money. Case in point, at this time that we were scaling so rapidly, we were onboarded with a new client, and the things that used to work when we were a team of leaders all doing their thing and knowing how to communicate, it worked fine. But then when our people got people, when the people got people, and then their people got people as a growing organization, and you're building out this organizational flow chart with senior director leadership and senior leadership and mid leadership and junior staff and talent, this is where it gets really sticky. And higher up leadership had a meeting with none of the execution staff on hand. They had a meeting with a new client and proposed them this beautiful email marketing template. They passed it to the team. The account manager was not part of it back then either. They saw absolutely no problems with it. Here's a beautiful template. Now you guys go make it. Oh my goodness, y'all. Oh my goodness. The amount of overspending that went into this project before I stepped in was wild. It was not my project. It was not my job, but I saw it happening. And I said, you guys, we need to streamline communication. And so with the templates that I made an alignment of team communication. Because think about it, not only are you getting everybody in a room, but you have the different thinkers who it's that game of telephone once more. And if you have a writer talking to a graphic designer, those are two totally separate kinds of brains. The writer may be very literal. The graphic designer may be very conceptual. And the account manager is going to be very high level because they're repeating back what the clients are saying. And when you get down and design it, you would be shocked at the amount of nuance that you never saw coming. And so through these templated systems, I was able to help save this client a very well-known name in flooring, over $10,000 in less than 6 weeks in creative billable hours alone. Over $10,000 in less than 6 weeks of creative billable hours alone. Are you kidding me? So when your team is scaling, there is so much, guys. I know that I hit this... I mentioned this point a lot. Marketing is a big waste of money if you're not careful. There's so many lost hours due to miscommunication, outdated processes, no alignment, and assumption that the creative you're putting your marketing dollars behind is telling a story that resonates with the audience. So very rarely are we talking about that, and that is part of brand storytelling. So when everybody got these customized communication templates for cross departments, we were able to start operating in a very, very productive way. A few years later, I was invited back with my agency partner, no longer there full time, but as a consultant to come in and work on a different client. And oddly enough, this client experiencing the same communication chaos was working on another email marketing project. And it's funny that something so, I want to say simple or baseline marketing 101 could be such a huge waste and burn on resources. And so it's hidden resource wasters like this that I help my clients identify and streamline so that they can do more with less and use more resources to put towards scaling or other areas of business. So that's why magnetic storytelling is one of your most scalable processes that you can bring in. But why is it sustainable? Sustainability is very near and dear to my heart. When the first time I ever went out of the country, I did a study abroad, and I had applied for study abroad in Australia. It was through the University of Georgia. I remember walking up to that little desk. They had their banner. It's Australia. And I was like, I'm ready to sign up. I'm so excited. And it was full, y'all. It was full. And I remember the woman behind the counter told me, well, a lot of students really like New Zealand. I hadn't heard of anything about New Zealand. What's New Zealand? Who wants to go there? Australia has the Great Barrier Reef and down under, mate. It was Australia, you know? I'm so glad I did not go to Australia. I ended up doing the study abroad program, and it was 4 weeks in New Zealand, and then Australia and New Zealand both met, for those who elected to, for a week in Fiji. And every single person who did the study abroad in Australia said it was such a bummer. Meanwhile, in New Zealand, oh my gosh, what an incredible island nation. With the two islands, I spent most of the time, we were on a bus touring around the South Island. And there was this one place in particular called Kaikoura. And Kaikoura is so naturally, biologically diverse. Is that how they put it? Their ecosystem is such a sustainable culture of nature and human interaction that there are all of these dolphins that congregate there naturally. They are not enticed in any way, and you can swim with them. Now, that water is freezing. And if you're a small college-sized woman like myself at the time, I was wearing a suit that did not fit me, and all the water rushed in, and I remember being breathless, and it was so cold. I was like, okay, we got to do this. Swam over, spattering to the side of the boat, got myself situated, and I went back in. Took a big breath, and I went under. And as I sink down, my eyes open, there is a dolphin Dusky dolphin, I think is the type, just circling me. And his eye made eye contact with mine, and the connection in that moment was unreal. That animal was studying me, and we were close. And so after this experience, I walked away with such a fascination with sustainability. And I took this with me back to my alma mater of Georgia Southern University. Yes, tap myself on the shoulder. It was the only accredited school in the state for design at the time. And I've gotten very used to defending that decision to not be at UGA for the remainder of my studies. I was accepted there. I did study abroad there. But I was at Georgia Southern for their architecture and design program. I was so in love with my thesis project of creating a very radical, bold idea of making a sustainable, so ADA compliant in that way, and LEED Silver certified. That is oh goodness, I can't think of what that is, but it's a USGBC. Now all these acronyms are coming back to me. There's all these government agencies that help make buildings and architecture more sustainable. And so I wanted to build, or my thesis project was all of the drawings to build to scale an accessible, sustainable ski resort, which is funny, but why can't people in a wheelchair go enjoy the mountainside of a ski resort and just not go skiing? That project won awards. I loved it. I never ended up going into design because that was my first experience with disruption. As the 2008-2009 Great Recession hit, nobody could even get an unpaid internship. But that time planted such an important seed of not only design elements that I use today in my storytelling and helps me, of course, with the brand storytelling work that I do, but also this sustainable obsession's not the right word. It's a calling. Sustainability is important in all senses of the word. And so our organizations today need to be sustainable too. I do a lot of work with family enterprises, and most of them, I think it's 30%, only 30% succeed when the first generation passes down to the second generation. And from there, if the second generation passes down to the third, only 12% succeed. And with the work that I've done with a leading transportation and logistics industry leader, they're a family enterprise that has 40 years as their average employee tenure. They just celebrated their 100th anniversary, and because of the brand storytelling work, they had the story. They implemented it before I came in, but I worked with them for about 5 years, developing their brand story, developing that internal culture that helped them continue to rise as a leader. And so they beat the odds, right? 12% would make it to the third generation. Brand storytelling can help you with that. It also helps create this culture where you have a happy staff, and it goes back to that idea of creating walking billboards. Before my agency got bought out and it was an amazing place to work at, I would take pictures and post all the time that marketing would tag me in later and be like, oh my gosh, Christy, you're such a dream. This is so amazing. But I wasn't the only one posting about how much I loved my job. So when you can create this culture that is part of your story through and through, that creates the energy aspect. That's the presence aspect that helps you have magnetic marketplace presence, because you're not just spending money on Google ads and SEO, and all those things are important, but you need the essence. And that's what brand storytelling will help you do. It also helps you build that trust that we've been talking about is so important. And think about it this way. Why does trust matter so much as a business? Why does it matter in our own lives? I think, I'm probably not alone here in being able to share that, there can be trust issues sometimes, right? We all have them in different ways. Maybe in my case, it was two people I thought to partner with. This is here's my vulnerable share for the day. Two people that I thought I needed to partner with really at this time last year. And words are so important to me that I can tend to believe what people say, and I want to believe what they say. But without living and breathing and being the embodiment of what you say, it's all a facade. And so I'll be honest with you, if my purpose on this planet was not what it is, I truly feel that I found my purpose through this, we'll call it feeling of betrayal or being taken advantage of, because I was so disheartened with humans that I wanted to quit. I said, you know what? I've been taken advantage of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in the last few months. Goodness gracious, I am the common denominator. It's me. Obviously, I'm not cut out for this. I don't want to change who I am. I don't want to stop being an open, loving person who sees the best in everybody. I guess I'm not cut out for business anymore. And that's obviously not the case. I learned some boundaries and discernment, and it wasn't really that big of a deal. But at the time, I was so hurt that I thought I would go back to getting a full-time job. And of course, as I'm at an event, World Congress, trying to translate my advertising skills into a new industry that would excite me, everybody finally was like so interested in my speaking career as a storyteller and brand storyteller and wanting to come in and do trainings and get me on their podcast. And I was like, now. But it was a great lesson, because when I moved back into partnerships, my goodness, I was so guarded. And think about, if you're listening, if you've ever had a relationship end poorly, maybe somebody wasn't honest with you or they weren't loyal. How long until you open your heart again and trust them? And these are maybe extreme sounding scenarios and compared to brands, but not really. How many people do you know that have gotten scammed recently? Or have sent you a message, hey, don't click on this, or don't go to this, or hey, getting these calls, watch out. Illegitimate businesses are scamming consumers out of their hard-earned dollars, and it's making them super guarded. Wouldn't you be? We should be guarded. So in order to combat this, we have to establish trust. And it goes back to creating that whole culture, that alignment, that full experience type of service where sales and marketing and customer service all speak the same language. They're not reading off a script, man. It is so maddening when you're trying to get one of my favorite applications for ChatGPT is helping me troubleshoot technology woes that I do not understand and that do not follow the same outline that any article or Google article is made to help you with, right? Having text, and I'm a writer and I understand very well, but having text-based communication when you don't understand the language of tech, oh my gosh, it's hard. And I spent an hour and a half on the phone. I'm going to put them on blast. Spend an hour and a half on the phone with GoDaddy IT support last week trying to figure out something for my email. They were so unhelpful. And I was patient. Didn't always used to be patient. I was patient for 1 hour and 1 minute. And then I started to lose my cool because we got nowhere. It was not resolved. It was a waste of time. And they had gotten to the point where they were first, they just had to keep putting me on hold because she was admittedly don't know anything and had to get supervisors. And when I tried to talk to a supervisor, somebody that was expert at it and could help me, she's like, no, we just have to wait. Okay, I'm being patient. I'm doing other things. All right, listening to music, woosah, calm down. And when she came back and just started ignoring my question to answer it in a different way, you know what I mean? That scripted, I'm not really answering you, but I'm reading my script and it sounds like I am. Man, you guys, that is the norm out here, and consumers are so frustrated. Everybody is so frustrated with the market landscape of how companies treat consumers. So if you can adopt this new communication alignment, oh my gosh, you are going to grow so fast. And that's why I say magnetic storytelling is a rapid scaling and growth technique that helps impossible opportunities become possible. What else? What else do we need to talk about? Let's talk about how to apply it. So we've talked about the importance of it. If you listen to episode 1 and episode 2 of the podcast, you'll learn more about capturing attention. You'll learn more about using emotionally evocative language and the language of your audience to build trust and pull people in. But how can you really go further and begin to apply all of the trust building organizational culture type of tactics that we talked about today? So first, you can focus on developing a brand story like we talked about that's more than your about page, but it's a story that encompasses the past, the present, and the future, as well as the transformation that you apply or offer to your audience. What is that one sentence story? If you want to get clear on that, where were they before? What was the obstacle? That whole story arc that we talk about in previous episodes. Get clear on that and begin to put this on paper. If you have multiple stakeholders who need to weigh in on this, the first step would be defining who are the voices to listen to within the organization. And ultimately, there should be a scale of who is the final decision maker if we don't agree. Next, you'll want to create customizable templates. So not scripts like the old ways of doing things that are so maddening, but guiding points, emotionally evocative language, that brand story, points that relate to the company's values so that all three of these departments can integrate it into their communication with the outside world. Also, this helps cross-department terminology, like I mentioned before, especially with email marketing. It's so silly, but is this a component? Is it a hero? Is this the first section? What goes where? You would be shocked at how something so simple can waste so much time as you begin scaling and get more people having people work on things. Now, most sales, marketing, and customer service roles in this day and age are wearing multiple hats. So let's destruct those silos that we talked about earlier. Let's lean fully into dismantling them and encourage this collaboration, because it's not so separate anymore, right? There's blend and there's crossover, and those team members are doing those blended crossover roles. So let's plan for this and let's adapt. And finally, for the fourth actionable tactic, you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube Shorts and check out the 3 very tactical pieces of advice I shared around designing an event and wanting to get people in the seats, and how you can adapt your communication, your digital communication, to appeal more to these new buyers and their expectations. That is on LinkedIn. I was having a recent conversation with a client with events that we were planning, and I thought that the feedback would be helpful to all of the listeners. So wanted to share that for you guys. Lastly, you can go to christyrenee.com and you can schedule your free one-on-one strategy session straight from there. And we can talk all about the ways that your organization can benefit from implementing this storytelling culture. And until we talk again, I hope that this inspires you to lead and live with more purpose, more presence, and more authenticity so that we can shape the community and culture around us. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Bye.